Good afternoon, and welcome you to a wonderful interactive session about 194R. First of all, let me thank all the doctors who have made their time here to get more information on the 194 Act, which is recently introduced by the government in July 2022. We understand that there are a lot of questions where all of us need certain answers, and for those answers, I have Mr. Sufiya, who is a qualified CA, guides the pharma companies as well as his personal clients on certain laws of finance. And one of that law is 194R that has come across us. We are honored to have Mr. Sophia as a part of the team here to answer the questions. Uh, Doctors, I would request you to just understand a bit about 194 Act. At the same time, you can also post in your questions, which we'll be answering at the end of the session. This session is about an hour or so. Please accommodate the time so that you get all your questions answered. Over to Mr. Sophia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mona Madam, for your lovely introductions. Good evening, all the ladies and gentlemen. Welcome all the participants for the webinar. So the webinar topic which we will be covering is the 194R of the Income Tax Act. So it has been introduced from 1st July 2022. So how will we be going along this webinar? What points I will be covered? I will just brief you about that. So what the points I will be covered in the presentation? First, I will let people be introduced what is meant by tax deduction as source. What is section 194R? What's the purpose of introducing 194R? What is the scope of 194R? Implications on doctors, advantages and disadvantages, and then we have a question and answer session. So before wasting our time, let's move on. So first, I will like to introduce to our all fellow participants that what is meant by TDS. Most of them would have been aware of this, but since it could be possible, some maybe not been aware. So I want to first cover this topic. So the concept of TDS was introduced with an aim to collect tax from various source of income generation. As per this concept, a deductor who is liable to make the specific nature of the payment to deductee shall deduct at source and remit to the account of government. So what are the examples of it? A tenant deduct TDS on payment of rent to landlord. Companies deduct TDS on payment to lawyers, professional fees. A pharma company deducts certain TDS amount on doctors for his professional services. So 194R, why it was introduced? The main purpose of 194R was to plug the possibility of tax revenue leakages that was happening in the business and professions. So let us give you an example. Like suppose if I win a case for my client and the client gives me a car, okay, and the car I'm using it for my personal use, but I have not paid the tax. So such type of transaction, if someone was doing the tax evasion, was not getting covered under Income Tax Act. So government, to allow that such transaction get covered under the act, they have introduced 194R. So basically they have introduced to capture all the benefits or perquisites or gifts which was given for business and professions. So this was the major objective why it was introduced, which was not getting captured before the implementation of 194R. So what's the purpose? The purpose was to introduce to plug the possibility of tax revenue leakages in business and professions. A few company claim expenses for business promotion while offering gifts per perquisite or benefit. So this is the important part. Perquisites and benefits to its distributors, dealers, channel partners. The recipient did not report this transaction in their income tax return because certain transactions were only given in kind and not in cash. So when the amount was not getting reflected in the bank account, so how will the income tax get to know of it? So for that purpose, they have introduced 194R. So the major purpose is to widen the tax base and plug any scope of tax evasion happening in the country. So what is the meaning of 94R? The Finance Act 2022 inserted a new section 194R with effect from 1st July 2022. Before this, if any transaction has been happened of any gifts, perquisite, that will not be covered and that is not liable to any TDS. From 1st July 2022, all such transaction will be covered under the 194R. So the new section 194R cast an obligation on the person responsible for providing any benefit or perquisite to a resident to deduct tax deducted at the rate of 10%. So this is most important. So tax will be deducted at the rate of 10%. Whether the benefit of perquisite is in cash or in kind. So if I am receiving the gifts in cash, like in checks, or if I'm receiving certain things which are in kind, like gadgets, a motor car, or such things, then that also will be covered. The benefit of perquisite may or may not be converted into money, but should arise from carrying out business and profession by a resident. The tax shall be deducted before providing benefit or perquisite to the resident person. So before the payer gives the money to the payee, he has to deduct TDS and then give the amount to the payee. Now, what is the threshold limit of it? Like how much amount till it is applicable and for transaction it is applicable. So this deduction is not required to be made if value or aggregate value of benefit or perquisite provided to the resident during the financial year does not exceed 20,000. So if I am getting a gifts or perquisite up to the value of 20,000, 194R is not applicable for it. Once it goes above 20,000, so tax will be deducted on the whole amount. For example, doctors receive gift voucher of suppose 50,000 from pharma companies. So here the amount exceeds 20,000 per deductee. What will happen? TDS will be deducted and TDS will be deducted on the whole amount of 50,000. So 5,000 will be deducted as per 194R. That is 10% of 50,000. Okay. So if the amount is up to 20,000, 194R will not be applicable. Now, what is the scope of section 194R? What transactions are being covered under 194R? So what the law says, any benefit or perquisite enlarges the scope of this provision to the range of transaction. It is not only that the doctors will be covered or only pharma professionals will be covered. All the industries which are coming under arises from business or exercise of provision and taking any benefit or any perquisite from the payer will be covered under this act. So any benefit perquisite enlarges the scope of this provision to the range of transaction. The primary checkpoint before applying 194R is that the benefit perquisite is provided to a resident and arises from business or exercise of a profession. Okay. So only business transaction will be covered. Only professional will be covered. Personal transaction will not be covered. So suppose someone gives a donation to any X person or someone gives any gifts to any family members, that will not be covered. But if you are deriving any benefit for giving certain business due to some profession, so that will be covered under 194R. So we will take some examples here. A pharma company distributing free medicine samples to doctors or hospitals. So 194R will be applicable. Why? Because hospitals are doing their businesses. Doctor is a professional, hence they are covered in the 194R. But a pharma company distributing free samples to end consumer, general public, so 194 will not be applicable because this is been provided to general public and public are not going to sell out that medicines. Now, what are the transactions which are getting covered in 194R? 194R covers transaction other than employer-employee relationships. So if I am an employer and I am providing any gifts or benefits to my employee, okay, that will not be covered in the 194R. So no TDS is liable to be deducted on any gifts or benefits given to the employee. So 194R covers transaction other than employer-employee relationship. Benefit perquisite provided in employer-employee relationships are already covered under different section of Income Tax Act. So they are not covered here. Now let's take on a case study, okay, relating to pharma industry. So company ABC is a pharmaceutical company. it has administered a new drug, and to obtain recognition distributes free samples to doctor as a medical practitioner. So what happens in such case under 194R? If Dr. S is an employee at XYZ private hospital or Dr. X is a consultant. So there are two situations here. If he is an employee or if he is a consultant at hospital. So what is happening? The ABC company is distributing free samples to Dr. S, and there are two conditions, that if he is an employee at XYZ hospital or he is a consultant. So in feasibility will be applicable. If applicable, whose TDS will be deducted. So we have taken this case study here. So situation 1, there are two benefits provided. Company ABC and XYZ private hospital. Now, company ABC and private hospital are not in an employee-employee relationship. Therefore, 194 is attracted. Second situation, XYZ and Dr. S. If they are in under employer-employee relationship, XYZ and Dr. S, 192 is accredited instead of 194R. So when an employer and employee relationship is established, 194R is not applicable. In the first case, what will be that ABC will be deducting the TDS of hospital and not of the employee. Now, suppose he is a consultant to the hospital. So what will be happening in this case? That the ABC company will be has a two option. He can deduct of the what we say. He can deduct of hospital also and a consultant also. So here there is no employer-employee relationship. The ABC company will directly deduct TDS of XYZ hospital. Now, what are the implications on doctors? See what is happening here, that all the major transactions in today's world are getting covered under various information statements and various details by mutual funds, industry, banks, financial institution. All are giving the details that someone is spending, suppose on their travels, on their credit cards. All such details has been collected by the government. Now, anything, so they are providing the details that Mr. X has taken a foreign travel of these, have used the foreign currency of this much amount, or has gone for a foreign travel. So all these details are collected by the government, and the government knows that what an SSC has collected the income, and how much tax he is liable to pay. Okay. So therefore, it is very important that doctors know about it, and they are also should in hand know that what are the sections and what are the implications that will be arising because of such transaction. So what are the transactions which will get covered under 194R for the doctors if they are getting any free medical samples distributed by pharma companies? So whenever a doctor gets some free medical samples for pharma industry, he has to see whether the value of it is about 20,000 or not per company. So if the value of free samples is about 20,000, 194R is applicable. So pharma company, what they will do, they will ask for their PAN card details. They will deduct the TDS on it. Now what a doctor can do, if doctors receive these free samples and he then distributes to the customers, so he may claim it as an expense, and the TDS deducted by the pharma company, he can claim it as a refund in their income tax refund. Okay, so any kind of freebies received by doctors from pharma companies, any kind of freebies, if it is arising from a business perspective, that will be covered under 194R. And the pharma company or any other person from which they are receiving it, they are liable to deduct TDS on it. So that directly gets added into doctors' income, and then doctors can see that if they've received the benefits and if they've passed on the benefits to customers or not. That will now reflect in their income. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of 194R? So what are the advantages only to the government? So advantages includes curbing of tax revenue leakages, tax evasion in business or profession for governments. Okay, so government will get increased revenue from it, and they will spend on the society. Increased tax collection and growth of formal economy. Okay, so for your knowledge, the GST collections about 4 years ago was 60,000 crore. Okay, but now the GST collection per month is about 1.5 lakh crore per month. So within 3 years, it has nearly doubled. So government want to increase their collections, and that amount they want to spend it on the public. Now doctors will have to be compliant as large data is being captured by income tax authorities from various agencies shown in annual information statement of individual. So if you ask your CA to check the 26A as an annual information statement, all the cash deposits, cash withdrawals, credit card spends, foreign payment, foreign travel, all of this has been reflected with the PAN number. So it's very important to check it. If certain transaction you have incurred, you have to see whether you are liable for tax or not. If any variance with IT department data will lead to income tax notices and hefty penalty and interest if found guilty on income tax. Okay, so this 994R was majorly introduced to curb the tax evasion and to put major transactions which are out of it. To government want to take all the transactions now under tax. Now, what are the disadvantages of it? There are still certain ambiguity that will get only resolved if certain judgments that come out post producing that are going on. So it will get cleared in the due course. Okay, so that was the briefing of 194R. I will just like to summarize it, like what we have learned under this. So majorly, it covers any benefit or perquisite received arising out of business and profession. Okay, so if you are doing a business, you are getting any gifts, and that gives they are providing you just to increase their business sales or something like that. That all will be covered under 194. What is the threshold limit? Threshold limit is 20,000 per transaction per deductive for the whole year. Okay, and the advantage and disadvantage of 190 we have gone through. So, madam, we will just like to take a question and answer session. So we'll give half an hour for our questions and answers.
Yes. So we've received this question that is all private hospital indoor bill more than rupees 20,000 are supposed to add a TDS to the patient's bill?
No, no. This is applicable only for the business transactions. Okay. So 194R.
Management.
Okay. So what is happening that as you have, as all may be aware, so if the turnover of any person SSE is more than 20 lakh per financial year, okay, so he has to compulsorily get himself registered under GST. Okay, so if doctors are receiving amount except the amount for the medical practices which is exempt under GST of amount of value more than 20 lakh, then they come under the GST. So they have to also get the GST registration done, pay the due taxes on it. Okay. So every SSC should check themselves for the financial year. What are the services amount they are receiving from the medical practices? Okay. And what are the income they have received other than the medical practitioners? So if the amount goes above 20 lakh, they will come under GST. Otherwise, GST department will issue the notice that you have incurred income more than 20 lakh and why you have not paid the GST amount. So every doctors or SSC will have to check themselves for that. Okay.
Right. Thank you. There's one more question that's come up. That is there any tax implications for small gift articles like a wall clock or a pen? Will it kind of attract any taxes?
Yes, if you are getting any benefit and any perquisite from anyone from due to their business transactions, however small amount is, if you are telling that they have provided a clock or this, if the amount is below 20,000, then no TDS is applicable. Okay, if the amount goes above 20,000, so you have to calculate the fair market value of the item you have received. So if the clock value and other things value, if you combine the fair market value and it goes above 20,000, then TDS will be deducted. If it's below 20,000, then there is no issue. TDS will not be deducted.
Right. Many companies keep asking about the Aadhaar card while making certain CME or advisory agreements.
Hmm.
So doctors are inquisitive to understand why Aadhaar card is required.
Hmm. Okay. So let me first cover the area which major doctors would have in their mind, that what will happen if a doctor attends the CME. Okay. Will it get covered under 194R or not? So there was a June circular issued by the government clarification on it. Okay. So if a doctors or participants attendees attends the CME, okay, and the CME is for the medical education, you can say, or promotion of certain products. Okay. For general suggestion on the products launch. Okay. So 194R will not be applicable for the doctors, be it travel, be it uh, food, hotel stay, everything. 194R will not be applicable. Okay, but still pharma companies may ask for a PAN card to the doctors, because they also have to collect the data that basic collect data that the CME had happened. So what I would advise is that whenever a doctor shares a PAN card to anyone, what he could do is just write the purpose for which he is providing the PAN card on the PAN card copy, and also mention the date and signature on it. So there will be no misuse by anyone. And whenever they have been asked to share the Aadhaar card, okay, so what they can do, they can share the Marks Aadhaar card, which is available on the M-Aadhaar app. So no misuse of that is also possible. Okay.
Right. Doctors also wanted to understand what would be the tax implications because certain doctors go into the 30% tax bracket.
Hmm. See what is there in 194R, that they will just want to capture the transaction. Okay, so they may there the TDS is 10% which will be deducted, but this is not all. The final tax liability will come only when they will file their returns. Okay, so what will happen? It could be possible like a free sample. Pharma company will deduct 10% TDS, but it may happen that the transaction is not uh, getting captured, or the transaction is not covered under the income tax side, because the doctor is giving the free sample to the patient. Okay, so he can claim as an expense. So the final tax will not be there on the amount. So he can claim the refund from it, refund of the 10% of tax deducted. Okay. So what doctor has to check whether it is arising as an income, or they have passed on these benefits to the others. If they have passed on these benefits to some others, they can claim a deduction, and the 10% deducted can then be claimed as a refund.
Right. Okay, we have one more question which says that what are the advantages and disadvantages of this new financial act?
Advantages is that the major transaction are covered in which we call a digital economy. Okay, so the advantages from the government point of view: increase tax collection, increase revenue. So, and that is a major advantage to the what we call a government. But if you compare to the SSE, now they if anyone is not following, or if anyone is not aware of the transactions and is just collecting any money and using it for different purposes, then he should be assured that a notice from the government income tax department will get he will be getting the notice from the income tax department. Okay, so the important thing is to be aware of the taxation laws and get implemented from themselves.
Right. I think there's one government doctor who's asking
Okay.
that a doctor is getting salary
Mhm.
and he has his own setup.
Mhm.
So income is going, if the income is going above 20 lakhs,
Mhm.
would GST be applicable?
So if the amount which is being collected from the personal practices, medical practice, that is exempt from GST. Okay, the salary amount which is getting from the hospital, okay, that is taxable under the head salaries. So that he is not required to get the GST. Okay, just he is required to just get the amount, salary amount, and get the calculations done for the salary amount and pay the due taxes on it. So GST is not applicable for him if there is no other business other than the salary and medical practices.
Right. Okay. So few doctors are part of our agreements in terms of either it would be advisory board or the post marketing surveillance agreements. So in
Okay.
that case, the doctor has the query that if these agreements are made by the company,
Mm.
would the doctor be considered as an employee of the company?
No, no, no. Employer-employee relationship will not arise. Only professional services would arise. And so due TDS will be deducted by the pharma company from the doctors, and that amount is has to be shown under the income in the doctor's income tax returns.
Right. Okay. So there's one more query which is of course answered during your session, but still doctors want to know that if a pharma company is transferring some 12,000 rupees
Mm.
to him as a part of the services, would this transaction be applicable for TDS deduction?
No, the amount is less than 20,000, hence it will not be covered under 194.
Right. And just in case if this amount is deducted, the TDS is deducted by the
Mm.
company in view of that the total amount given to the doctor would be more than 20,000 in a year.
Mm.
Would this TDS be reimbursed as a part of the taxable income?
No, that they will have to pay the due taxes on it, and it will not get the reimbursed. Okay. So the final tax liability which they get in their income tax return, that will be calculated, and these TDS will be adjusted in the total tax liability. So
Uh,
they will not be getting the due refund of it. So because what is happening in 194R, the tax rate is only 10%. But in most cases, if you see in India, if their income goes about 10 to 10 lakhs, so the tax rate is 30%. So that if we are getting a tax rate of 30%, that 10% which has been collected as a TDS will be getting adjusted into it. So they will not be getting the tax payable would be so high that this will be adjusted. They will not be getting the refund.
Right. So it will, as I understand, it will all depend on their income tax,
Yeah, yeah,
income declaration,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it will also depend on their TDS, various TDS deducted.
Yes,
So
yes.
upon income deduction, it will be taken up as a part of the total TDS, and which may be applicable for a refund or not applicable for a refund.
Yes, that will depend on case to case basis. But in most cases, that will, if you are connecting any, getting any perquisite or benefits or any gifts which are covered under 194R, and that is a taxable. Okay, so in most cases, you would be liable to pay the balance amount because the TDS here is 10%, and the final tax liability would be more than 10%. So it will get adjusted into it.
Oh, okay, right, right. Now, there's one question come in say which says that if the doctor is getting an amount from the company
Mm.
as under agreement of advisory board, after deduction of 10%, will the doctor be liable to pay 30% tax slab?
See, if there is getting any amount from a pharma company from the tax deducted, means he has been providing certain services to the company. Okay, so that amount is a taxable income. Okay, now the tax rate will depend on the individual incomes slab. Okay, so more it could be that the rate could be about 30%, and if he's not providing the PAN card, then it could be even huge. Okay, to 20% would be the TDS on it. So basically, the tax rate in India is a progressive system. If you look like this, till the amount of 5 lakhs, there is no tax in India. Okay, from 5 to 7.5, then 7.5 to 10, and from more than 10 lakh, there is a 30% set. So there is a progressive system of taxation in India. So the government don't want to tax the people who are earning up to 5 lakh. The major people in India are getting covered under it. Okay, so the tax rate in higher case should be, if the income is more than 10 lakh, it will go up to 30%. And if they are more than 50 lakh income, then certain surcharge would add in. If the income is more than 1 crore, then another surcharge would get added in. So it is a progressive system. As your income goes higher, the tax will go as high. But you can say if you are having a higher income, so you can get tax up to 40-45% also.
Right. Okay, great. So I think we're done with the questions. And these and any sign off note that you would like to address to the doctors.
Yes. There are certain more questions that I'm getting.
No, all these are answered.
Yes.
I have, yes. So all these are answered. Any sign off note that you want to give it to the doctors
Yes, so I
before we
want to
log
tell
off?
the doctors that every year or after every quarter, they should just check their 26 AS, okay, or ask their CA to check their 26 AS and check with other income which is being shown under the 26 AS. And they themselves should be prepared or should know that what are the incomes or whatever for what are transaction for it is arisen, okay, because nowadays government is strict, okay, everything is online, so what they should be prepared beforehand for their for what could arise after that, okay, so they should get they should have certain knowledge of what they should also be prepared of the various sections which are applicable to them, be it 194R or be it their income tax slabs, they should know about it.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much for your wonderful interaction. We've had a lot of questions from doctors, of which majority of them are being answered on this forum. Doctors, I would also request you, if you have certain questions, you can definitely send it to our field force who has given you this invite for the interactive session. And it's been heteros, the privilege that you have attended this session for us. We will like to interact with you on this more, and we would like to thank Mr. Sufia for this knowledgeable session.